My niece called the $20,000 Sweet 16. I threw her lame and said I ruined everything. She thought I would just stand there and take it. So, I calmly walked to the DJ, cut the music, and told the caterers to pack up every last appetizer. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We are always curious, where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The ballroom was shimmering. I had made sure of it. As an interior designer, my professional reputation was built on creating magic. And tonight, I had poured all that expertise into my niece, Sophia. The theme was Midnight Garden, and I had spared no expense. Thousands of tiny fiber optic lights were woven into curtains of deep blue velvet, mimicking a starry sky. The centerpieces were breathtaking. Arrangements of white orchids and silver ferns that climbed toward the ceiling, all reflected in the polished black dance floor I'd had specially installed. The scent of gardenias and the low sophisticated thrum of the DJ's opening set filled the air. I stood near the entrance, a flute of non-alcoholic sparkling cider in my hand, feeling a deep swell of pride. This wasn't just a party. It was a statement. A statement that despite the financial struggles my sister Daisy always seemed to be in, her daughter would want for nothing. At least not while I was around. Olivia, it's a fairy tale. Daisy had whispered to me an hour earlier, her eyes wet with tears. She was a real estate agent, perpetually chasing the next big commission that never seemed to land. And her gratitude was palpable. I don't know how you did this. You just focus on being the mother of the birthday girl, Heidi said, smoothing down the lapel of my dress. I've got this. And I did. I'd spent 3 months planning this. I'd personally vetted the caterer whose chefs were currently assembling gourmet plates of mini beef Wellingtons and truffle-infused macaroni and cheese. I'd auditioned 3 different DJs to find this one. A young woman with an incredible knack for blending current hits with timeless classics. The venue, a historic downtown hotel ballroom, was one I'd used for my highest-end clients. The total cost was cresting $20,000, a sum I'd gladly paid. Sophia was my only niece. She was supposed to be the daughter I never had. I watched her move through the crowd of her friends. She was wearing a custom-made silver dress I'd commissioned, looking every bit the princess. But something was off. Her smile was tight. She kept glancing over her shoulder at a girl with sharp features and a bored expression. Madison, her new best friend. Madison was from one of those new money families, and her influence on Sophia over the past 6 months had been concerning. I started to walk over, intending to ask Sophia if she was enjoying herself. I moved quietly, my soft-soled shoes making no sound on the plush carpet bordering the dance floor. I came up behind her just as she and Madison were standing near the towering 8-tier cake I designed to look like a silver birch tree. Madison gestured vaguely at the room with a manicured hand. I mean, it's cute, I guess, in a really retro way. I stopped, hidden by a large floral display. It's not cute, Maddie. It's lame. Sophia's voice was sharp, cutting, and filled with a teenage vitriol that physically stung. The DJ is playing so much old people music and the food. Seriously, who serves this? Everyone wanted a taco truck. And this, Madison said, flicking the skirt of Sophia's dress, is not the designer we talked about. I know, Sophia's voice rose to a near wail. She said she'd handle it, and then she just did all this. She didn't even ask me. This is so lame. You ruined everything, Aunt Olivia. She didn't know I was there, of course. She was complaining to Madison about me. She had spat my name like it was something bitter in her mouth. I stood frozen for a full 30 seconds. The shimmering lights suddenly looked garish. The expensive food seemed ridiculous. The music felt like a funeral Durga. Every single sacrifice, every late night call from Daisy Live. I'm a little short on the mortgage. Every check I'd written, every bit of professional capital I had cashed in to make this night perfect, it all goes into a single cold, hard knot in my stomach. I had been a resource, a bank, a fixer. I was the reliable, successful, childless older sister who could just handle it. And in that moment, I realized that by always handling it, I had taught them that my money, my time, and my effort were limitless and ultimately worthless. Sophia rolled her eyes again, grabbed Madison's hand, and said, "Let's go get a pic for Insta. At least we can use a filter to make it look less basic." They walked off laughing toward the photo booth. Also, my idea, also $1,500. I closed my eyes. The swell of pride was gone, replaced by a glacial calm. The betrayal was so total, so dismissive that it didn't even hurt. It just clarified. They had forgotten one crucial thing. They had forgotten who I was. I wasn't just Aunt Olivia, the family ATM. I was Olivia Grant, the owner of a firm that had built its reputation on flawless execution and ironclad contracts. And the person who signs the checks holds the pen. The betrayal wasn't just the insult. It was the realization that this was what they truly thought of me, and I was done paying it. The glacial calm didn't break. It solidified. I felt my breathing even out as I watched my niece, the girl I'd taught to ride a bike, the girl I'd taken to her first Broadway show, pose and pin for a camera, mocking the very event she had begged me to provide. My mind, trained by years of managing demanding clients and fickle contractors, didn't spiral into why me. It immediately shifted into what now? I thought back over the last 3 months. The planning had been a nightmare, but I'd assumed it was just typical teenage indecision. Now I saw it clearly. Every request Sophia had made was a direct echo of Madison's influence. "Aunt Liv," she'd said over the phone 2 months ago. I was thinking, a ballroom is just so old. "What did you have in mind, sweetie?" I'd asked, scrolling through swatches for a client. "Well, Madison's cousin had her party at the Void. It's this new industrial space. It's all concrete and exposed pipes, and they had a graffiti artist doing live work. And a sushi wall." "A sushi wall?" I'd repeated, baffled. "Sophia, honey, that sounds complicated. And the Void is a nightclub. They don't do private events for 16-year-olds. But Maddie said she'd whined. I'd overruled her gently. "We're going with the ballroom. It's elegant. It's classic. Trust me, it will be beautiful. But I want a sushi wall." She'd cried before hanging up. A week later, it was the DJ. I'd sent her 3 demo tapes. She'd sent back a link to a SoundCloud exclusive artist who, according to Madison, was the next big thing and charged $10,000 for a 2-hour set. I had put my foot down. "Sophia, this is my gift to you. You either let me plan it or you and your mother can plan it." Daisy had called me flustered. An hour later, "Liv, please just be patient with her. She's under so much pressure. This new school. All her friends are well, you know, they have so much and I'm giving her a $20,000 party." Daisy ID said, my patience wearing thin. "That is more than so much. That is everything." I know, Daisy had said, her voice dropping to that familiar wheedling tone. And we are so grateful. Really, we are. Just make it nice, okay? She deserves it. She deserves it. Standing there by the floral display, those words echoed in my head. She deserves it. I looked across the room. My sister Daisy was holding court near the bar, laughing with some of her own friends she'd invited. She was wearing a new dress when I hadn't bought her, and looked perfectly at ease, sipping a cocktail, completely oblivious to her daughter's behavior. She was basking in the reflected glow of my wealth, accepting compliments for a party she hadn't contributed a single dollar or a single idea to. That I realized was the root of the problem. Daisy enabled it. She saw me as a solution, not a sister. And she had raised her daughter to see me the same way. A new wave of cold fury, sharp and precise, cut through my calm. This wasn't just Sophia's teenage ignorance. This was a systemic rot in my family, a pattern of taking that I had foolishly, generously, and consistently allowed. My phone vibrated in my clutch. It was a text from the venue manager, a man named Marcus, whom I'd worked with for years. Marcus, Olivia, everything looks spectacular. The kitchen is ready to serve the main course on your signal. Also, just a reminder, the final vendor payments, DJ, catering, are due for settlement tonight, per our agreement. I smiled, a tight, thin smile that didn't reach my eyes. Per our agreement. I had structured the payments this way myself. It was standard for high-end events. You pay a deposit to book, but the final massive installments for the talent and the food are paid upon services rendered. This ensures the DJ doesn't leave early and the caterer doesn't run out of food. It was my own professional safety net and I was about to use it in a way I had never imagined. I texted Marcus back, hold on the main course. I need to speak with you, the caterer, and the DJ in your office. Immediately and quietly, I looked at my watch. 9:15 p.m. The party was scheduled to go until midnight. The main course was due to be served at 9:30 p.m. The guests, about 80 teenagers and 20 adults, were mingling. The DJ was just starting to ramp up the energy. Everything was perfect. It was a perfect, beautiful, expensive match-in. Hey! And I was about to pull the plug. I started walking toward the back of house, my heels clicking with purpose on the marble floor. I was no longer a vulnerable aunt. I was a client. A client who had been insulted. A client who was about to cancel a contract. The betrayal was worse than the money. The money I could make again. The betrayal was the realization that my love was valued only by its price tag. And even then, they thought it was cheap. My relationship with my sister Daisy has always been complicated. She's 3 years younger and I've spent my entire life pulling her out of trouble. It started small. I'd do her homework in high school so she wouldn't fail. I'd cover her shift at the diner so she could go to a party. Then it escalated. When our parents passed away, I was 28 and just starting my design firm. Daisy was 25 and, as she put it, finding herself. She burned through her small inheritance in 6 months on a trip to Europe and a guy who played guitar. I, on the other hand, had invested mine in my business, working 80-hour weeks, sleeping on a cot in my tiny office. When she came home broke and pregnant with Sophia, I was the one who let her move into my one-bedroom apartment. I was the one who paid for the prenatal vitamins, who held her hand during the birth, and who bought the first 5 years' worth of Sophia's clothes. "You're a lifesaver, Liv," she'd always say, hugging me tightly. "I'll pay you back, I swear." She never did. She got her real estate license, which I paid for. She needed a professional car to drive clients around, so I co-signed the lease on a luxury sedan. When she wanted to buy a small condo, the bank laughed at her credit. So, I put up the 20% down payment myself, telling myself it was an investment in the family. For 16 years, I had been the family's structural support. I was the load-bearing wall holding up the entire precarious house of cards that was Daisy's life. And Sophia was supposed to be the point of it all. I loved her genuinely. I saw her as a chance to give someone all the things I'd never had. I took her to museums, to the theater, to client meetings in beautiful homes. I wanted to show her that a woman could be independent, successful, and in charge. I thought I was teaching her strength. Instead, I had apparently just been teaching her how to be a very effective, very entitled princess. As I walked toward the manager's office, the weight of that generosity pressed down on me. I thought of the client I turned down last month, a lucrative hotel project, because I needed to focus on Sophia's party. I thought of the vacation I'd postponed, the savings I dipped into. This party wasn't just $20,000. It was a symbol of decades of one-way sacrifice. And Sophia's words hadn't just been an insult. They were a judgment.